Hello, my name is Sven P, and in this video I'll show you how I built the Stormglass castle on the top of the mountain. This video is sponsored by G-Portal. Get 5% off your G-Portal service by clicking the link in the description. This build was made all the way to the southwest on the island. It has mountains similar to the other mountains on the west side of the Isle of Siptah. There, however, is only this mountain that has a gap in between for me to build an epic bridge, and that's why I chose this place. For this part of the video, I used the song Falketind by Edvard Bolås. It's named after a Norwegian mountain, and it fits perfectly with these kind of videos where we are up high, building an epic structure. For more of his music, check out his channel. All music will be linked in the description. It was difficult to place the foundations at this place, because the mountain is very thin, and since the foundations has to be snapped together, the first foundation you place has to be at the right angle so that the circle I created further back would align with the mountain. Also, on the other side, there will be the bridge, and the bridge would need to go straight over to the other mountain. If it was at the wrong angle, it would go out in the air, and that wouldn't be good. To make the bridge, you have to make a pillar down to the bottom to transfer support over to the other side. This way, you'll have support from both sides, making your builds long enough, and it will snap all together pretty nicely. The bridge was perhaps my favorite part of this build. The Stormglass Gothic style combined with the less sophisticated feeling of a mountain gives a very majestic feeling. When building something like this in survival, that is obviously much harder. But keep in mind that you want to make your build fit with the nature and not the other way around. When building in a place like this, let your nature guide where you place things. If it doesn't look symmetric, that's not a problem. However, with admin commands, I did make this pretty symmetric, but the designs are still a little limited by the limited space and shapes that I have to deal with. But the overall finished product becomes way cooler because nature is part of your build. The building pieces that I am placing under the bridge are a little bit hard to get into the right position, because once you start placing a ceiling, you cannot build the archways right under the ceilings. So if you start off with the ceiling and then build something on top of that ceiling, you'll have to remove that and have the rest of the build be destroyed in order to create the archways. And it's also the same if you want to just adjust the positioning of your arch pieces. That is why this process got a little bit more complicated here, and I had to redo a couple of things. It was absolutely worth it though. The bridge ended looking epic, if you'd ask me. The archways in the middle of the bridge is one extra block up, and the ones all the way to the sides are one block lower. This was to create a little bit more of an interesting shape to the bridge. I absolutely love the lighting in the Isle of Siptah. They use some sort of an in-game light that is called volumetric light, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really know exactly what that means, but if there is something halfway blocking the sun, you can see some rays coming from the sun, and that looks super epic. This song right here is called T-Tauri. T-Tauri. I don't really know how to pronounce it. Why am I bringing this up? It's because this song is absolutely epic, and I don't really want to ruin the song by having a commentary over it right now. So I'm gonna get back after this song actually. Make sure you check out Utho Riley, the artist behind this song. His music is absolutely epic. I really love the energy of that song, especially the part where it speeds up. And I really like using this song for speed build videos because I can speed up my video while the song speeds up and try to synchronize it a little bit. I later in the video will show you the huge tower and how I built it on the other side of the bridge. But here you can see me build what I would call a small cathedral. To get to the tower at the end, you'll have to go through the cathedral, up the stairs and through the back door. The entrance will be at a much lower point than the back door. For a bigger and more glorious cathedral, check out my Stormglass Cathedral speed build video. If you haven't watched it yet, I promise you, it will blow your mind. The cathedral that I made in this build, I wanted to have right here because I wanted to have sort of a long pathway from the bottom to the top of the tower, where you have to travel through the whole thing and it will be sort of like a journey. I like to feel like the builds that I made could have been like a dungeon or a level on a game like Dark Souls, which makes me think of all the times you guys have suggested I made Anor Londo from Dark Souls. That build is a little bit too big, but I think there are some really cool aspects of it that makes me want to create something inspired by it, and it would work really well with Stormglass. Behind the tower and around it, I decided that I wanted to have a little bit of a path going down. So in one way this path makes the tower a little bit thicker, making the shape a little bit more interesting on the bottom. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the reason why I want to do that later in the video. But I really like making thin passages like this. It feels really, I don't know, epic, I guess. I like how it goes with the mountain. It doesn't look super clean or sophisticated, but it has a lot of character to it. Let's talk a little bit more about the small cathedral design here. On the front, like Notre Dame and the other cathedral that I made, it has 2 towers. Yet here it is much smaller. This limits options of design to some degree actually. But as I'll talk a little bit more about later in the video, smaller things looks better than big things often in Conan Exiles. I find that, however, not always to be the case with towers. Because you cannot have ceilings sticking out here, for example, because they will be too big and won't add to the build. An example of what I'm talking about would, for example, be a balcony made with wedge ceilings. They would be too big, they would stick out too far, since it's only a 2x2 tower. With this being said, the natural detail on each building piece is enough to make it glorious already, so even though it's just 2x2 and tall, and it's just a roof on top, it already looks good. You can also see I made some flying buttresses for the cathedral. I was really happy with those actually. Use the inverted slope walls to snap to the foundations, and from there, build upwards with walls. Because of the way inverted walls can snap to neighboring blocks, and not just the block underneath it, you can use those to create the 45-degree parts of the buttress. The song that we're listening to now, by the way, is the menu theme from the Isle of Siptah. It's very epic sounding, and I feel like the sound kind of fits with the cathedral, so I thought why not put it in this video. I'm gonna skip quite a bit of what I'm doing right here because it seems kind of self-explanatory. Just gotta aim correctly to get the bridge over across here, and then you just gotta have the foundation support and all of that stuff. As you can see, I included some blocks from the Agrasen expansion, which is another one of my favorite building pieces. It doesn't look as great from above, but when walking through the build, the white marble staircase ends up looking amazing. And I think it's the most important to make things look good from a human perspective walking through, rather from bird's view, because there aren't any flying mounts in Conan Exiles. I also made a little temple right here, combining with Stormglass and Agrasen pillars. These pillars are thicker than all of the other pillars in the game, and for that reason it looks a lot better. Other pillars look quite weird when stacking more than just one on top of each other. The staircase goes all the way to the bottom of the build. I'm not gonna bore you with the whole process here. I cut a lot of that out because this also seemed a little bit self-explanatory. However, it can be a little bit difficult at first to connect it to the mountainside, but once you get a hang of how to do that, it gets pretty easy. Another thing, on the sides of the staircase, I put wedge foundation pillars with a pointy end to both give the build a little bit more detailed feel and also make it look a little more aggressive looking. Something that fits these mountains here very well. I went a little crazy with this part of the build because I wanted to have a stairway kind of like where you can look up and see the whole thing, and also have it start by the road and not have the entrance to the build start off in the middle of the grass. That would have looked a little weird. That's why I wanted this to be very long. But it ended up being a very long stairway at the beginning there, and it looks a little bit overkill. But who doesn't like a little overkill, you know? It's not a Sven P speed build if it's not overkill, right? Gotta say, by the way, this song here, which reminds me a little bit of the band Opeth. This is made by Alexander Nakarada, very awesome musician that I use a lot in my videos. You should definitely check out his channel. I love the build up towards this metal part right here. And I like when I manage to get the music to transfer over to... First there's like this chill part where we're at the bottom of the mountain, and it's kind of like, yeah, we're just building this chill overkill staircase. I guess it's not really that chill, but up here, we're up in epic mountains, and then the song gets all metal. What I'm saying is basically I like making the music fit with the building process. But it's pretty difficult sometimes to make that happen, but when it does happen, it's really, really satisfying. The big tower at the end proved a lot more challenging than expected. It is easy in Conan Exiles to make something small look good, an example being the small temple with the grass on pillars, but something bigger? Now that's a lot harder actually. In Conan Exiles the building pieces has a lot of detail on all the edges, on the top, on the bottom, on the sides, and those edges stick out and are visible, also from the distance. They look great by itself, but when there's more of them, it starts looking very repetitive actually. There are ways to prevent that feeling though. One, which I eventually started using on this build, but not at first, was to have the inside of the Stormglass walls stick out, because the inside looks a lot sleeker and won't look as repetitive when you have a lot of them on top of each other. Another challenging thing about the tower is that often a tower looks great when it gradually gets thinner. It makes it feel like it stands on solid ground and it won't collapse. It even makes it look quite a bit taller. Because from the bottom it looks like the top is very far away, because it's starting to look small on the top, so it tricks your eye a little bit. But this is not very easy to do in most of these building games, because they rarely offer a smooth angle like this. Usually we have 90-degree angles and 45-degree angles to work with, which makes that impossible. What I do instead here is having a variety of interesting shapes to make up the tower. On each of the square foundations on the outer side of the ring, I'm building the walls all the way out, but where there are triangles, there will be a little gap. Then all the way up, it will be a similar shape, built on the outer squares, and a gap in the triangle areas. This will trick the eye into feeling like the tower gets gradually thinner, but in reality, it is not gradual at all, but the gap in between makes it feel a lot more balanced. And yet another challenge with the towers will be the foundation support. In Ark, the foundation support carries in a weird way, making this a lot easier there. I'm not gonna try to explain how it is in Ark, but in Conan Exiles, you have to have enough foundation support under each block. Of course, one could always build a bunch of pillars on the inside, but ideally, the interior should look cool as well. What makes that hard is that pillars in Conan Exiles, when stacking many on top of each other, looks quite ugly. And foundations are too thick to use as pillars. This will cause you to have to make a lot of sacrifices in how your interior looks for it to be possible to build all the way to the top. On top, I barely had enough support for this. I don't really know what to call this thing here, but I thought it looked really cool. Initially, all the way on the top here, I wanted to have one of those anti-avatar beams because they look epic. But I didn't have space inside to build that, and the reason why I didn't have space was because I didn't have enough foundation support and I needed to have that in the middle. Extra lighting really helped make this place look really colorful, and it made the marble stairway blend in a little bit better with the Stormglass by making it look a little bit more yellow. I put torches and braziers all over the place. I also decorated with plants and tables to make the interiors more lively. I added some red flags. After all, the slave forged armor, which is what I'm wearing. The slave forged armor is what goes with the Stormglass set, and the slave forged armor has some red cloth on it. So I felt like it would be nice to add some of these red flags to make it match a little better. And that concludes the speed build part of this video. I hope you enjoyed, because this video took almost 30 hours to make. Make sure you are subscribed if you enjoy this type of content. I've been doing this all day for 3.5 years, not planning on stopping anytime soon. If you want to support these videos, check out my Patreon, it really helps out a lot, and is linked in the description. I'll now show you the showcase of this video.